So, welcome to the New York Information Security Meetup slash the Cyber Guild. I have the great pleasure to introduce today the CEO of Hacware, Tiffany Ricks, who is a fellow entrepreneur in the cybersecurity space, and basically dialing and WebExing from Texas today, originally from Brooklyn, but has relocated for the quarantine for the COVID-19. And what we'll do is we'll spend the next 40 to 45 minutes just talking about the current events as well as the journey that Tiffany has taken to where she is today, and maybe we'll gain some insight, some ideas, and I'll encourage people to join in for any kind of conversation and comments or questions throughout. It's supposed to be open discussion, and I would love to engage as much as possible. So just why don't we get started? Why don't we kind of get started? First of all, I told you I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite superhero and why? Kind of a warm-up question.
Okay, so we're going to start off with that one. Okay. So my favorite superhero is the Incredible Hulk. I love the Incredible Hulk because he's a super intelligent guy, and he's very knowledgeable, educated, but there is this side of him when things are not right, he gets angry. And so I love this favorite quote that I have of the Incredible Hulk, because he does things that I can't do, but I'm living vicariously through him. But he has this quote of in one of the movies that he's always angry. So when you see him, as his character, and he's not in the Hulk character, but he's angry in that character. I just love that character because when he gets upset, he goes crazy. I don't get upset like that, but I wish just one day I could go to one of those rage rooms, that they have where you could just break things just to kind of let out some of your frustration.
So what do you think the female Hulk would look like if we had to make a choice? But because it's always a male version, and I think we're due for a female, Incredible Hulk.
I don't know. I think she would be bold. I think again she would be intelligent, very smart, super brilliant. But I think when she moves into the female Hulk version, she will be bold. She will let her voice be heard. She will not shrink when she's in a room full of people that may not look like her or think like her. She will be 100% herself, but bold and expressive. So I don't know what that looks like, but whatever picture you have in your mind about a bold, strong woman, I think that's who the a female Hulk version would be.
That's great. And maybe we'll come across, some things in our conversation where you wanted to turn into that woman. Maybe throughout the conversation, right? So I have the greatest appreciation to entrepreneurs, and I know how tough it is. And the cybersecurity space is very tough. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of vendors out there. It's saturated. There's a lot of FUD and all kinds of other things that are making it difficult for the industry. So why don't you walk us through your career path and why you decided to create your own pave your own path and create your own company?
Yeah. I think I got inspired to get into entrepreneurship from my dad. My dad, he was an entrepreneur. He owned a photography company, and it was a learning experience to watch him start a company from a concept and continue to try to build it, to grow it and scale it. And so seeing that as a kid, it really put me on this trajectory that I've been on and that I love and I keep doing. I call myself a serial entrepreneur because this is my fourth venture. And I keep asking myself, why do I keep doing this to myself? Because it's hard, but I love it. And so just to kind of walk you through my journey of how I got to where I am, I went to school for computer science. I love technology. I really feel like that's where I fit in this world. We always want to figure out, where do we fit? And once I started taking those technology classes, I found my community. I found where I fit, and I knew that this is what I was going to be doing for the rest of my life.
And Tiffany, why did you decide to go to take a STEM, computer science? I mean, I can't imagine that there weren't that many women, part of your cohort.
It started because, so back when I was in high school, we didn't have programming classes, but we did have like technology classes, and it was like learning about websites or just learning about typing. And so what made me want to learn more is because in those classes, I saw a lot of people that were like me, a lot of people that talk like me, a lot of people that think like me. And so that is where I felt like these people get me. And it was two places where I felt like people got me. It was in the technology classes and then also on the basketball court. So I knew I wasn't going to go to school or get a career in basketball, but I knew that I could go to college for computer science. And so those technology classes were helpful. Then a guidance counselor showed me, I think at the time they had those books that kind of showed you like what would a engineer make, and so that was another thing that really encouraged me to try to go to school for computer science. Was I just saw that, okay, if I go to these schools, they're super expensive. When I get out, I could potentially make a decent wage, and so that's what kind of put me on that path: technology classes, and then just looking at the outcome.
I'm assuming there was no founder in the categories of, company founder in the category of professions when you were looking up that book.
No. Well, I don't know. I didn't look, but that did. So the technology piece really helped me to figure out how I could start my first company. I always wanted to know what business I was going to create. I always thought about what would the names be, what would the concept be. But once I figured out, okay, I can build technology, then I thought about, okay, what are all the problems that I want to solve with technology? And so I ended up starting my first company when I was in college. It was a point of sale company, and I went to college in Atlanta, Georgia. So I started building software for restaurants in Atlanta. And the problem there was that the current software solutions were super technical. They didn't have a simple user interface. All of these restaurants, all they wanted to do was to be able to make transactions and transfer money. And so I built a simple software project that could do that, sold that to mom and pop shops, then tried to scale it and sell it to chains. And then if we want to talk about failures, I could tell you about how I failed at that. But and then after that venture, I started another company, and I started, I think, 3 other companies. Then I started working for the Department of Defense as a software engineer. I had a secret clearance. I started building enterprise software for the United States Air Force. And then from there, as you're working with the Department of Defense, security was super early then, but they were experiencing a lot of hacks. And so they wanted to make sure that we could learn how to build resilient software. And so that moved me into a role of a security engineer. Then from there, after I learned, okay, how does hackers hack? How could we build software that could avoid getting penetrated by hackers? It led me to this curiosity of wanting to learn more about cybersecurity. And so what I did was I left that company and started a consultancy that focused on cybersecurity services like penetration testing. It focused on emerging technology. We worked with small companies at first, and then worked our way up to providing cybersecurity and software solutions for Fortune 100 companies. And that's what led me to what I'm doing here today as the CEO of Hacware. Was I saw that through our cybersecurity offering that humans were a huge risk to cybersecurity. Human error, social engineering attacks kept happening. And I saw how vulnerable people were to these attacks and how they weren't trained properly. And so I leveraged again my software background, and I wanted to solve this problem with software. And so today I'm the founder and CEO of Hacware, and we focus on solving a cybersecurity learning platform that helps employees turn their vulnerable email behavior into strengths through experiential learning.
That's amazing. So, as we always say, the humans are the weakest link, right? You get rid of the human and problem solved, right? If it was only machine, right? It was basically most of the problems would get solved. So it's really interesting because that journey of finding a gap somewhere, and then trying to go out and solve that problem is something that I've seen before, and so where was the moment where you saw, okay, I see the weakest link? Because a lot of people see a lot of gaps and they do nothing about it. Right? They don't go out and open new businesses. I think so. Maybe I want to touch upon that point where you saw the gap and you said, "Oh, there's a gap. I'm going to build a company. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to solve that gap." Where was that turning point for you? Because I'm assuming you're successful with a services company. You were working with a Fortune 100. You're doing well. So what made you to take another plunge and go through that pain again of creating a new business?
Yeah. I mean, my team thought I was crazy when I said, they thought I was crazy when I said, we aren't going to focus on services anymore. We're going to solely focus on this product and making it scalable. And so what really was, it just, the contracts became the same. We kept having to solve this same problem, and our customers will want to know, how do we, is there anything that we could use that could potentially solve the problem? We recommended a couple solutions. They were labor intensive. It required them to hire someone to manage the software, to run the software. The employees were learning how to identify when the company was testing them, and they weren't learning how to learn and identify when a hacker was trying to pull information from them. They were just learning how to get around the system. And so a lot of times we would see that the employees, when we would use one of our competitor solution, they would get on the chat, tell everyone, hey, the company's testing us with, this type of phishing exercise. Don't fall for it because we don't want to go through training. But the companies were still experiencing a high number of breaches and a high number of ransomware. And so what I did was I really tried to figure out, okay, how are hackers today? We spend our time in dark web forums. I spend my time really trying to figure out, how does a hacker hack? And then what I did was think about, okay, how could we simulate this same experience where it is learning what the vulnerabilities are of the company, and then auto-generating these phishing exercises, these hacking attempts, to help companies really understand how breaches and hacks are happening today. So to quickly answer your question, we saw that the current technology wasn't solving the need. You needed something that was automated, something that was intelligent, and something that could help the employees really see what they're vulnerable to so they can get better.
So how did you walk me through the process of getting to MVP, like a minimum viable product? And how did you get like the first couple clients? Because that's the challenge, I think, for a lot of startups out there. And obviously you've done it before, and you sold services to large clients and so on. But maybe you can walk me through that process, how you managed to find those few early adopters that can test your product, and then walk me through like where you are today with the product development, and maybe what's your goal for the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah. So this is the perfect time for those who are thinking about starting a new venture. We're at the early stage, so I'm going to tell you about the things you would experience when you start your journey, because we're in it. We're in the midst of it right now. And so the first question of how did we build our MVP? So we started with thinking about what is the main issue that cybersecurity or security awareness professionals are having? Like, what is the main problem that they're experiencing? What was the main problem that we had as a software and cybersecurity consultancy with these solutions? And so the first thing we thought about was we didn't want to run this product ourselves. We wanted a way to try to figure out how could we look at the data and have it continuously adapt to the organization. And so at that time, I had engineers, because we were focused on both of those services, software and cybersecurity. So my engineering team, we got together, we did a bunch of brainstorming sessions to try to figure out how we can create this automation. The first version of the product was a product that when we built it, we thought it was great, but it wasn't a product that I wanted to use. It was actually the first product that we built. It was a scary product. And I can tell you that because it had access to at the first version, we saved all of the emails for the organization. We saved all of the emails, and then the product tried to learn from those emails. And then when it came to testing it and we had to use our own emails, and me as the CEO, I have a lot of information in my emails. I have invoices, quotes, payroll, a lot of information in my emails that I didn't even want to put into this system because I didn't want anyone to have access to that. And so when I saw that I didn't want to use the first version of our product, I knew other organizations wouldn't want to either. So the first version we scrapped.
Yeah, but, Tiffany, though, like, how it works, right? If you're not ashamed of the first release, that means that it's too late, right? You have to be kind of ashamed of what you built.
That's it.
Because otherwise,
that's it. That's it. But it wasn't ashamed. I was scared.
Just one step up.
But then we came up and we went to the drawing board again, and we realized how could we still put out an MVP, but it wasn't as scary. And so we released the first version of the product in February. And then to get to your question about how do we get those first adopters, that's where we currently are. So we went back to the services companies that were using us, and we asked them to pilot the product. So we did that. We went to those that we knew. Then from there, we went through trying to reach out to other people in our network to see if this is something that they wanted to use. So we went through the pilot piece. Now for this year, our goal is to hit revenue goals. So now we have a product that is predicting at a 80% confidence rate when employees are vulnerable. It is dynamically generating these phishing exercises. And so now we're at the point of trying to hit our revenue goals.
Now, is it self-learning? So, for example, when the COVID-19, there's a lot of phishing attempts right now related to that. Is the technology now intelligent enough to look at that and adapt to these new attempts?
So there's two parts of the adapting piece of our technology. The first part is it looks for phishing exercises that have real phishing emails that have hacked individuals. So it scrapes the dark web, it scrapes WikiLeaks, it looks on social media, and it finds recent phishing exercises that hackers are using. And so a lot of things that it's finding and scrubbing the web now is a lot of COVID, a lot of paycheck protection, phishing exercises. And what it does from there is then it will try to create a phishing exercise with that content and send that to the employee. So that's one way where it continuously learns from all of the vulnerabilities outside the organization.
So I'm assuming that the dark web now contains some COVID-19
Absolutely.
examples, right? Because of that, they continuously adapt, right, to the environment. It's a combination of social engineering and phishing attempts as well, right? So
absolutely. I mean, that was when when hackers are the most adaptable, like they are on it. Like when there is an opportunity to exploit something, they are on it. So in
agile. They're very agile.
They're very agile. So in March, that is when you saw a heavy amount of COVID-19 phishing exercises. And as people got more smart about it, they moved to the next way of trying to exploit and figure out a way to expose vulnerability. So there's still a lot of COVID stuff, but it wasn't as much as it was now, because they really try to find and be those that first try to find that first opportunity to exploit a weakness. And so a lot of that stuff happened in early March.
Right. And then the second piece of how it adapts, you said in one piece was the adaptation of the search. What was the second piece?
So then it adapts to the actual employee. So it tries to understand, okay, what the employee does not know about cybersecurity based on their behavior. And so what it tries to do is, if the employee they typically communicate to people external to their organization that have attachments, this product will try to create a phishing exercise with that same sort of behavior. So it adapts to the employee, this is important because employees want to know how they can improve. They don't want, people are very, very smart. Like the idea that people are aren't educated about technology is not the case. People are very intelligent, and they don't want technology that is going to reteach them things that they already know. They want to learn something new and then get on to their job. They don't want to waste their time continuously learning the same stuff, continuously wasting their time with training that has nothing to do with their job. They want something that is applicable to them. And so this is how our technology is really different, is because it's adapting to what they do not know based on their behaviors and training them on that.
It's very interesting. So, and then you now have, I'm assuming you have pilots and customers that are currently running it. What's your next phase of growth for the company, and what's your goal of what you already have running a services organization? You're building a software company, a services company. What's the goal after that? When are you going to create the next business?
Okay, so the first question is, so what's next? Partnerships are important to us. So really what we see that in this market, the small business market is they're at risk to getting hacked. 70% of small business are at risk to getting hacked. There's 30,000 cybersecurity vendors. And 96% of them target enterprises. There's 5,000 enterprises in the United States. So that means that we have a lot of the software solutions that could help them focus on, that aren't focused on the small business. They're focused on the enterprise. And so we see that we really need to support the SMB market. They are, they're 50% of our revenue from the United States comes from small businesses. And so we're looking to partner with managed service providers. We're looking to partner with other software vendors where we can offer our product as an OEM product, because we really want to meet the SMB mid-market's needs. Mm-hmm. And then when you ask about what am I going to do next, I'm focused 100% on this human error problem and how we can help solve this problem. And so I'm not really thinking about the next venture. I think what we're doing here at Hacware is meaningful work, and that's where my mindset is for now.
So you're committed. That's great.
Absolutely.
So, so you're a CEO, you're running a company right now. You're actually running a company with kind of two, separate entities. So what's your day-to-day role look like? What do you like about it? What you don't like about it? If there is anything you don't like about it?
My day-to-day role is I am focused on, I'm a magician. I'm focused on turning the impossible into possible. I'm a superhero. No, yeah. So the day to day is focused on, making sure that I push Hackware's goals. Every day, I have a quarterly goal of what I want to hit, and so I have to do tasks to outreach to potential partners. Our team is small, so I still code, which I love, but I can't do that much because I am running a company. And I am putting awareness out about what we're doing. And so one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I did with this venture here at Hacware is, with other ventures, I was one of the types of CEOs that thought if I build it, people would come. And I have learned through being a serial entrepreneur that you have to work hard in your business to hit your internal goals, but you also have to work on building a brand and bringing awareness to what you're doing, so people can know, about the great things that you're doing. So it's a combination of internal work, being a magician, and external work of bringing awareness to what Hackware's doing.
So the difficult part of it, and I'm assuming that as a CEO, and again, going out there, looking for partnership, looking for customers and so on, you face rejection. Sometimes, people say, hey, this is great, but maybe not today, and so on. So how do you keep yourself, obviously you're a very motivated person to begin with, but how do you keep yourself motivated as, because this is almost like a roller coaster, right? You're one day you're doing great, and I talked to an entrepreneur who said that you had, this past Friday, you had a great day and a really bad day in one day, so how do you keep yourself motivated, and how do you deal with, potentially with rejection?
Yeah, that's definitely a accurate representation of entrepreneurship. It's a roller coaster, and you can, in the same day, have a super high and a super low. And so what I have to do, because I know that that's a part of my day, I'm a structured person. So I structure my day to where I can try to end on a positive note. So what I do is, like on the sales calls, I always put those at the beginning of the day, because there's going to be no's. And early in my career, no's was very hard. Like, I would take it super hard, and it would, it was like a punch in the gut every time. But as you hear more and more no's, what I've found is that the sting is less. And if you keep going, you're going to eventually get a yes. And so I typically put my sales calls at the early part of the day, because I know there's going to be some no's, and I don't want to end my day thinking about what I could have said or what could have gone differently. And then I typically try to end my day, with something positive or something that I know is going to make me motivated to hit the next day. And so that could be talking to someone on my team, talking to a mentor, or just thinking about the things that I'm excited about getting to the next day. I'll try to review and structure and put that at the end of the day. Coding, I will try to look at some code at the end of the day, because that brings me joy. But I try to really just structure my day, because I know the negative part could potentially happen at the beginning. And then when I hit a down moment, where there are down moments, you have to compartmentalize. And so the way I try to get out of that moment really fast, because I can't afford to have a day where I'm super down, is I try to find something uplifting or something to remind me why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm working here with my kids, and so I typically may go on a bike ride or try to find something online that makes me laugh, so I can get out of that moment and then move on to the rest of my day. So that's how I try to structure my
It's an
day.
absolutely fantastic strategy. It really is. I can't stress this enough. This is unbelievable. Totally love this methodology. And actually touch upon one thing. And kind of my next question is like, if you would have known, obviously you've done it a couple of times and start like learning and becoming more, more knowledgeable and more experienced. If you would have done something different, when you started, would you have done anything different? And you already touched upon that now you wanted something that you don't necessarily build it and it will come. Do you want to build something that the customers will actually want? Anything else that you would have done differently if you would have known?
Yeah, I think I would have bragged about myself more. And that, yeah, and I think it's very important to brag about yourself. It's very important to let people know about what you have done and what you can do. Early in my career, when I was focusing on building a business, I would think all I have to do is just build this great product and, put it out there and people are going to want it. When I worked for a corporation, I would say, all I have to do is just be a rock star engineer, kill whatever project that they give me. And my name is going to be known as, this person who is a great executor. But that is not 100%. That is not what you should rely on. Just your work will speak for will speak for you. Because a lot of times it won't. You have to talk about the things you've done. You have to be your cheerleader. You
Yeah.
have to build relationships with people to allow them to speak for you. And so that's something that I wish I would have learned
Yeah.
earlier.
Self promotion, maybe some,
Self promotion,
self branding. So now
self
what's the difference
branding.
between that and, some people will take that and say, okay, I don't, I'm a modest person, right? You're too modest. And it's part of putting yourself out there. I mean, just like you mentioned, it's really tough to go out there and trying to sell what you're doing. You also have to sell yourself. And so how do you deal with that, block? Because most people they don't like to necessarily put themselves out there, so
And
how do you,
that's totally not within my nature. It was something that was it's still something that I still struggle with, because, sometimes it doesn't feel natural to say all of these great things about yourself. It just doesn't feel natural, and you don't want to do it because you feel so uncomfortable. But with all growth and with all the great things that you move toward, it is uncomfortable. You're going to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. I'm an introvert. I feel I'm excited when I can code and when I can read books. I don't get excited about having to go and talk to people and tell them about myself and tell them about what I built. But no one will know unless I tell them. And so I have to let my goals, I have to let my passion push me to do those uncomfortable things. And that is what others who are introverts or just do not feel comfortable bragging about themselves or branding, having a personal brand, they have to let something else drive them. They have to have something else push them to do those uncomfortable things. And that's why knowing your why and getting fired up about your why will make you start thinking about, okay, what can I do to shine? What can I do to show people that I am capable of doing this in cybersecurity, or I am capable of running a company. You have to communicate and have pride about that. So, but something has to drive you to do that uncomfortable thing.
Right, absolutely. So what do you recommend for people that want to get into cyber? And then, again, you're a bit of an anomaly because, there's not that many women founders, specifically in cyber. I think in general, just about in cyber as well. So you probably had to go through some challenges there as well. I don't know if you can provide some insight to women who want to get into this space, because it's a very male dominated field. And granted, I would love to have more women join the forces. It will benefit for anyone or everyone in this space.
Yeah. So I would say for women who want to get in cyber, like, this is the perfect time. This is the perfect time to get into cybersecurity, versus when I was getting into cybersecurity and software engineering over 15 years ago. You have a lot of resources. There's a lot of, maybe not in the company, but there's a lot of external resources that you can use to find community. The most important thing that I would say for a woman that's interested in getting to cybersecurity is find community, because there are going to be some challenges, but if you have a community of others who are going through the same thing you're going through, or who have been through the same thing that you've been through, you can talk about, the challenge that you're facing. And so for me, I didn't have community. I didn't even have women that could mentor me, because a lot of times I was the only woman in meetings, or the only woman that was on a team. And so I had to look for mentorship in other areas. And so there was a lot of men that mentored me. There was a lot of men who saw things in me. And but I love that women who are getting into cybersecurity now, there's a lot of women, there's a lot of resources that can give you that community, that can help you grow in this career.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. It makes total sense. So a couple of just general questions about the industry and what you've seen. In your opinion, who does security well today? Companies, people, and what are your thoughts about, like, what is the top priority for executives right now? And have you seen anything changes in the era of COVID-19, from your perspective, just in the general marketplace?
Yeah, I think the companies could do cybersecurity well. The ones that are doing it well are the ones that are communicating with their employees about the why. Why are we focusing on cybersecurity? Why do we want to build a culture around cybersecurity? Why is it that you have to have two-factor authentication? So the companies that are really communicating with their employees on why we're doing this versus saying this is what you're doing, they have a better adoption from their employees. Everyone is on board. Everyone gets they understand that it's a shared mission, because the company is taking the time to explain to their organization why they're doing certain things. And then they actually invest in making sure that the organization has what they need to take cybersecurity seriously. A lot of things that I hear from executives, and I've taken the time to talk to over 50 cybersecurity executives, and one of the complaints that I've heard is that they will do a risk assessment. They will figure out where are their vulnerabilities as an organization, but some of the companies do not follow up and mitigate those risks. And so they understand that they have all these vulnerabilities, but they don't have the time or the resources to go and fix some of these problems. And so that's where some frustrations that I hear from cybersecurity executives. And then what was the other question you had?
Just the last one. If you what you've seen change because of the situation of COVID-19 externally in kind of the marketplace and the companies dealing with the impact, and then what does that mean also for your business and how you currently deal with it?
Yeah. So I've seen with COVID-19, so as I stated before, definitely that the bad actors are leveraging the vulnerabilities and using them for their advantage. And so how I see companies trying to respond is they're sort of in this space where again, they at first in the pandemic, it was all about let's just try to get everybody to work, get them to work from home. Let's try to get everyone, safe at home, make sure that they can work, making sure we can still have some sort of productivity. I think they were really concerned about productivity, and security was something that came afterward. Then they started moving towards, after they figured that productivity could potentially sustain, then they started thinking about cybersecurity. And where I see companies really focus today is they want cybersecurity that can be easily deployed to something that can support their employees in their home. So from a security awareness standpoint, they're looking for technology that can train their employees in the moment, that can identify when there is a vulnerability and train them in the moment, because they don't have the IT team within reach. So they're trying to leverage technology to solve that vulnerability. One of their top concerns outside of prior to the pandemic, when I talked about they didn't have the resources to mitigate their risk, now their top concern is their employees working from home, the resources that they have from home with their network. Is their network safe enough? And are their employees focused on their work as well as cybersecurity? And so they were concerned that wasn't the case, and they need technology that can train them in the moment. So that's what I see, and I see in the future them continuing to work from home and looking for remote solutions that can meet their employees where they are.
That's really interesting. So that's the current situation. Where do you see the whole industry moving in the next 12, 18, 24 months hopefully after now they're saying is pre COVID-19 and post COVID-19, so what's going to happen after it all hopefully ends and we move on?
So this is where I spend a lot of my time. I try to make sure that I have that I'm listening to the market, and the best companies will be the ones that are adapting to the market. And so when I look at the cybersecurity space, there was a hint that there was going to be a consolidation. I believe it is going to continue to be a consolidation of cybersecurity software solutions. Enterprises or IT professionals aren't going to want to have to sift through the 30,000 cybersecurity companies that are out there. They are going to want to, because their budgets are going to be cut, they're going to have to pick a cybersecurity vendor that can meet majority of their needs well, and fit within their smaller budget. And so I think there isn't going to be, a bunch of different vendors that cybersecurity professionals are going to have to manage. They're going to start shopping and looking for ones that can meet majority of their needs. And so what I see us doing to adapt to that is working and partnering with other software, other managed service providers to be a part of their technology solution.
That's awesome. So what we'll do is we'll provide obviously the video and then the contact information, the contact for Hacware. Encouraging anybody to try to test it out or reach out to you if for partnership information. So I would, adapt to what you mentioned and trying to, kind of wrap up in a positive note. What have you seen that, that the current situation has caused, like, on a positive side, to your day to day, to your job, to your family, and whatever else.
That's a good question. What have I seen that this pandemic has so I would say I've seen we all are trying to figure out how we can become, I think, efficiency. A lot of we're seeing ways that we can become more efficient than we've ever been before. We're seeing that we don't have to have these we don't have to have these super large buildings that we're going to bring all of the employees in. I think we're going to see that we're going to have more people working from home. Productivity is still working while people are at home. So they're going to, so they see that that's more efficient. I think us as people, for me, I don't have to drive. So I really see that what we've learned is we found ways to become more efficient, and things that we thought we needed, we don't need anymore. We really have gotten back to the basics. And really have found what is really important to us. And I think that's where we want to keep going, is thinking about, what is important to us, what really matters, and focus on that, and all the other stuff. It shouldn't go into the future. So I
No,
think that's a positive piece.
no, absolutely. And I concur. I mean, I completely agree. I think we've managed to continue our day to day and work activities, and productivity is, there was a blip. I think people were kind of shocked the first couple of weeks, and then coming back to kind of the new normal.
Mhm.
So listen, it's been a great pleasure having you this evening, and this was really awesome. Some a lot of wisdom and insight into your journey. And I'd love to hopefully host you in person when we come back and we have this physical events in New York. It will be an absolutely great pleasure.
Absolutely. Sure. Sure. Thank you, David. Thank you again for having me. This was a pleasure. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much. So thanks for everybody for joining, and I'll provide the recording afterwards. If anybody wants to share that, feel free. And the contact information for Tiffany and the company will be available. Again, encouraged to look it up and partner or try it out if all possible. So take care, all. Thank you again. I'll see you next time.